I changed the way that I was training. I changed my approach to the pole vault. I changed, I think up until that point, I was a good athlete. I was 26 years old at the time. I was a good athlete. I did exactly what my coaches told me to do. But after I know-how'd in the pole vault, I proceeded to take ownership of everything that I did. I listened to my coaches. I did what they told me to do, but now I was doing more things on the side. I was watching more video. I was understanding the events, not because they told me to, not because that was what was on the coaching, that was on the schedule that week. It was now I have to be responsible for my successes or failures. And I think up until that point, I was putting a lot of the responsibility on the coaches. It's like, dude, I'm a race car, you change the oil, you tell me where to go and I'll do it. But after that, it was like, now I was the crew chief and the driver at the same time.
Most of us never learned how to train our brains, which is why most of us needlessly settle, struggle, and worse, suffer. My name is Chris Doris, and I want to make brain training mainstream. This is my series, Tough Talks, Conversations on Mental Toughness. I'm interviewing badasses from all walks of life on what mental toughness means to them and their unique approaches to strengthening their minds. Hey everybody, welcome back to Tough Talks, Conversations on Mental Toughness. I am your host, Chris Doris, and before we get to our guest today, who is amazing, if you're not getting the daily dose mental toughness tips in 30 seconds or less delivered to your email inbox every morning at around 6 or 7 a.m. wherever you are on the planet, and if you're not getting also notifications of my blog posts that go out every Tuesday, and if you're not getting notifications of new episodes of the podcast that go out every other Thursday, then let's go ahead and resolve that issue real quick by going to ChristopherDorris.com. That's Doris, DORRIS. .com/lists, LISTS, ChristopherDorris.com/lists, and then right over on the right hand side of the homepage. Oh no, I had to delete that. It's just /lists. It'll be pretty blatantly obvious. Name, email, click, and you get the goodies. So raise your hand if you're interviewing the world's best athlete today. That's right. Yep, there he is, right there, Dan O'Brien. Yep. 1996 Olympic gold in the decathlon. That's 10 things. That's 10 events. 2 days. First day is a 100-meter run, then the long jump, shot put, high jump, and 400 meters. And then the second day is 110-meter hurdles, discus, pole vault, javelin, and then the 1,500 meters. That's ridiculous. His story is unbelievable. This guy is the epitome of mental toughness. I'm not going to spoil it, but I will say this in advance. This guy knows how to create from adversity. I'll read you a little bit of his bio, but I don't want to spoil. So he's a 5-time U.S. champion in the decathlon, 3-time world champion at the decathlon. Obviously, 96 Olympic gold medalist in it. World record decathlons 1992 through 99, 92 through 2010. He held the world record in the indoor heptathlon. Hall of Fame inductee for the USA Track and Field, U.S. Olympic Committee Hall of Fame, halls of fame all over the place. And he's a broadcaster on CBS, NBC, ESPN, Yahoo Sports, and others. He was adopted at the age of 2, which I cannot wait to ask him about because I was adopted too as an infant. That's just interesting. I didn't know that until I started doing some research. And he was adopted into a family with 7 other children of racially mixed backgrounds, which is remarkable. I totally want to. I hope he's cool with talking about that because I suspect he would be. It's in his bio. So, I'm not going to read any more of it because I wanted him to tell the story because otherwise I'd spoil it. So I met Dan many moons ago. I was introduced by a mutual friend, Lindsey Thompson. What's up, man? I hope you're watching this, brother. And thanks for the intro. And and now I get to reconnect with our boy Dan O'Brien for what I suspect is going to be one hell of a fun ride here in this episode, in this conversation. So let's go find him. He's waiting for us. Where you at, Dan? Dude, it's been years. We played Lindsey Thompson. If you happen to watch this, and Michael Schur, I think it was Mike Schur. I don't
That's
know.
right.
Yeah, that's back in the. I'm still connected with Mike Schur. Hey, I bet. Yo, Mike, what's up, man? He watches these. I don't know if Lindsey's going to see this, but if he does, appreciate the intro. So yeah, we teed it up 15 years ago.
Yeah, I was going to say I've been in the Valley now 20 years.
Man, might have been close to that.
Yeah, and when I first moved here, I could have played in a celebrity scramble of some kind each weekend. You know, so, yeah, who knows? It might have been the Alice Cooper. It might have been Steve Young. You know, one of those golf tournaments.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, thanks, brother. I really appreciate you making time for my Tough Talks tribe. We have some fun stuff to talk about. I just read everybody your remarkable bio. And one of the things that I would love to talk about, because we share it in common, is the fact that you're adopted. And I was adopted as an infant. I didn't find out until I was 10. And that was like weird. That was weird. I didn't find out until I was 10. There's a major identity crisis I experienced as a result that really turned my world upside down. But did you know that you're adopted into a family with 7 other kids, right, of racially mixed backgrounds?
That's right.
Were they all adopted?
No. So 6 of the kids were. So my mom had 2 biological kids. Okay. And by the time she had those were from her first marriage. And by the time she had got to her third marriage, where they started adopting kids, those kids were late teenagers, 16, 17 years old. Okay. So I was adopted at age 2. I knew immediately that I was adopted. If I didn't, there was something wrong with my eyesight, because I certainly didn't look anything like my parents. Yeah, my parents were really involved in a lot of church organizations, and they adopted my older sister, Karen. She was the first one. They adopted her when she was 4. About a year later, they adopted me when I was 2. And we were, a cool little family. And then they about every 18 months, 2 years, they ended up adopting another kid. And so there was 4 of us, but my mom's 2 oldest biological kids were gone and out of the house by the time I showed up. They were around, but they just weren't living in the same house. Yeah. And it wasn't until I was 11 or 12 that my parents then went and adopted 2 Korean girls that were just in, bad foster homes or bad adoption situations in another state. And, I love the fact that they opened their hearts and said, look, we could actually save a young girl from, who knows what's going to happen to her, throwing her back into the system or whatever. And so, so my sister, Karen, who's Native American, she was adopted first, and then I was adopted second. And then younger sister, who's biracial like myself, Patricia, she was adopted. She's, I think, 3.5 years younger than I am. And then I've got a little brother named Tom, who is Hispanic. And so in the age range,
man, that's a diverse household right there, man.
I'm telling you, in the age range of all 8 kids, I'm just like smack dab in the middle from an age range. Yep.
Where did you live the first 2 years of your life?
So I was born in Portland, Oregon, and I lived in a orphanage called Waverly Children's. It was a hospital, Waverly Children's Hospital. And what was interesting about it is, for years, you couldn't find any information out about, your adoption, your biological parents. But then as I got into my 30s, the laws changed in the state of Oregon. You were able to put in your information. If your biological parents wanted to find you, then they put in their information, and information like that could be shared. But what's interesting as well is I've had 2 really exhaustive attempts to find my biological parents without any success. So whoever gave me up for adoption just didn't want to be found. Sure. I was contacted. It was interesting. I was contacted by a guy in California probably 10 years ago who said, look, I might know who your biological parents are. And, honestly, growing up, and I struggled with my identity as well. And who was I and where did I fit in? And, tried to find kind of my people growing up. And, but I was really content with my parents. I didn't really feel a need to find out who my biological parents were, or my biological family. I think because my family was so large. And by the time I got to be a professional athlete, I'm a very giving person. I felt like I was helping a lot of people, making a difference in other people's lives, as a person, as a provider. And I just didn't want to open myself up to an even bigger family, honestly. It was almost kind of daunting to think, is like, if I met my biological parents and found new brothers and sisters and things like that, it's like, I don't know that I could give them, the emotional part of what that really means. I was really just, especially as a competing athlete, I wanted to wait till I was done. And even after I was done, 50-50, I've heard horror stories about people who found their biological parents, and it really affected them emotionally when they didn't want to have a relationship. So that's just kind of my adoption story. But I grew up with a great family, gigantic, big Sunday dinners, big Christmases, Easters, holidays. We went to Assembly of God Church, and everything we did was kind of around the church and the church community. And I mean, that's the thing that I probably miss the most as an adult, is having this big Sunday dinner.
You must have three nieces and nephews.
Well, and not only that, when you have a 16 or 17-year-old, brother or sister, they have kids, and you end up with kids almost the same age that are your nieces and nephews. And so I'm introducing a niece or a nephew that's only a year or two younger than I am.
Oh, that's neat. So when you're filling out some form, whatever it is, like for a passport, and when you get to ethnicity, what do you put?
Well, I have to put in my best guess. What I understand, the adoption agency, or the Waverly Children's Home, they have records on my biological parents, and my mother was white. My father was of mixed race, African American.
I read that. Okay, so you got that info. So you do have that.
Yeah. So wait, I definitely.
So if you wanted to, could you go find? Do you know your biological parents' names?
I know my biological mother's name.
Oh, so if you wanted to, then you got info on that.
Yes, absolutely.
Roger that. Okay. Fascinating.
And what's interesting as well is, while a number of kids in the family really felt it was their kind of mission to find their biological parents, they certainly, there were, of the 6 kids that were adopted, half of them were able to find out some information on their biological family. Not always their parents, but it was a grandmother, I had a sister who found out about her mother. I had a little brother who found out, who his people were, who his family was. And honestly, it was, and again, it's just, one of those things, 50-50, you find out good stuff, and the other 50%, you really find out bad stuff.
Yeah, right. Thanks for that. I'm one of the 50% that found out good stuff. So
okay, good.
I'm blessed, very blessed. So let's fast forward now a few years. And I would love to hear, I know you must have told this story a million times in the last, whatever it's been, 26 plus years. And
there you go.
Right?
I have to figure it out and count as well.
It's actually 30. The story I'm going to ask about, I think, started in maybe 91 or 2. Anyway, it's Dan and Dave. Okay. And I remember all that, man. That was clever. That was cool marketing, the Reebok stuff, the hype.
Yeah.
Right. So it was all the hype for people you could just go Google it, just go on YouTube. There's all kinds of stuff about, the commercials, clips and stuff that Reebok made about you and Dave Johnson going into the 92 Olympics, right?
That's right. Yes.
And who's the greatest athlete in the world. It was fun. It was all lighthearted. It was really clever. It was neat. I like the one with the commercial with the pumps. Like, don't tell Dave, I got these new shoes.
Yeah.
That was fun. It was good stuff. And then something happened that could be, well, you'll tell us if it was, in fact, a life pivot moment. The no hiding. Can you start wherever you want, man?
Sure.
That is a story that is 100% about psychology.
Sure. Sure. So I do a lot of motivational and team building type of corporate speaking, and I talk about the significant moments in my life, and this is certainly one of them. I learned more from a failure than I did from all my successes put together.
That's huge.
So,
That's huge.
and this failure has certainly kind of shaped me as an athlete, shaped me as a human, shaped me as a man, and certainly as a somebody who was making the transition from a young adult to an adult. And but what I throw back to my family real quick. What's been really fun about my journey, winning an Olympic gold medal and breaking world record and things, I got a chance to take this incredible family on this huge journey. So when they raise the flag and the national anthem goes up at the Olympic Stadium, my whole entire family is there, and
goosebumps, man.
Whether you're biological or not,
it's nice.
It was a great journey. So I had a lot of success in the early 90s, and it was interesting because I always wanted to be a professional athlete growing up. And so I'm a good athlete in college, and it wasn't until kind of my last couple of years of college that people started pointing at me going, man, that guy could be really good. My coaches started telling me, my teammates started telling me, and then I started qualifying for US championships and Olympic trials and things like that. And my talent was really taking me to another level. But I had a chance meeting in 1988. I'll never forget, at the US Olympic trials in Indianapolis. And I met Jackie Joyner-Kersee and Bob Kersee. Wow. And Jackie Joyner-Kersee may be possibly one of the, she's maybe the greatest female athlete we've ever had here in the United States. And Jackie's an amazing athlete. She also played basketball in the WNBA. And
I didn't know that.
Oh, she won world championships and Olympic games and in several different events, but she still holds the world record today in the heptathlon. And I remember at that time in my life, I had qualified for the Olympic trials in the decathlon, and I didn't really have a chance of making the 1988 team. However, I got a chance to just go and participate. And it was just like, this is going to be great experience for me. Go there, just get my feet wet a little bit. And on the practice track prior to my competition, a couple days earlier than I competed, I got to see Jackie Joyner-Kersee, and I was just in awe of her stature. I mean, she was 6 feet tall, and she was as ripped as I was, and it was like, oh my God, this is a really super, incredible specimen as an athlete. And I got to spend time with her and her husband, Bob Kersee. And they said, well, tell us about yourself and what are you doing? And I said, I do the decathlon, but man, I'm a better hurdler. I'm a better hurdler and I'm a better long jumper. And if I could long jump farther, then I wouldn't do the decathlon. If I could hurdle faster, I wouldn't do the decathlon. And they stopped me in my tracks right there. And they said, oh my God, what are you talking about? You got all the tools to be great. I mean, you could be the next great American decathlete. Think back. When was the last time we had a great American decathlete? It's 1976, Bruce Jenner. And so it really got me thinking. So I went through the competition, kind of, stumbled my way through the learning experience. But I remember being on the plane in 1988, going home from the Olympic trials. And I thought, you know what? They're right. I got to stop trying to get out of the decathlon. My ability took me to that level. I was all American in college, but my ability took me to that level. But it wasn't my, everybody wants to be Carl Lewis, of course. And 100 meters, long jump, they're the glamour events. And I kept trying to think that's this type of athlete that I wanted to be. But I did have all the tools to be a good decathlete. I just hadn't accepted it. And on that plane ride home, I said, I'm going to stop trying to get out of the decathlon. I'm going to take it on 100%. And I'll never forget, it was 3 years later that I won my first world championship.
Oh my God.
I mean, I'd stumbled along through college and, did a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but I wanted to make a living in the sport. I wasn't 100% sure what it was, what that meant. But it wasn't until I talked to Jackie and Bob and came home and said, all right, I'm taking off the kid gloves, and now it's time for me to really focus on this decathlon. And 3 years later, I was a world champion. And so in 1991, I've won my first world title. And that got the attention of Reebok. I had signed my first shoe deal with Reebok, and it was phenomenal because I was working part-time jobs and sometimes two jobs. I'd go pick up golf range balls in the morning at the golf course, and then I'd paint houses and clean up apartments in the afternoon. And
wow.
It was great because I had a great community.
Yeah.
I went to the Elks Club and the Rotary Lodge and said, "Hey guys, I'm an Olympic athlete. I'm trying to make it, but I don't have any money. If you can hire me." So I was painting people's fences on the weekends, and so it just
Wow.
this community got around me. But I had a couple solid jobs, but when I got my shoe contract, then I was able to concentrate fully on training, and
Nice.
that's what enabled me to win a world
That
championship.
must have been a nice day, right?
It was a huge blessing. And then, you get a good contract where you win a world championship. It's like, I got bonus money, and, it's, you're actually an adult, you're paying all your bills, you're paying off your student loans and, things like that.
All grown up.
But, yeah. So before me though, Dave Johnson was the best decathlete in the United States. And so prior to 1992, Reebok had both Dave and I to this huge sales convention in Orlando, Florida. And it was the first time I'd been to Disney World, and they put you up at a nice hotel, and they said, "Oh, we got a meeting, by the way, at, in one of the motel reading, hotel meeting rooms." And so I go in there, and Dave's there, and a couple people from Reebok, and then both Dave's agent and my agent show up as well. And Reebok said, "Well, we invited everybody here because we got an idea. We want to pitch you guys on this idea we have, Dan versus Dave." And what Reebok wanted to do is they wanted to take two unknown guys in an unknown event and get into what was at the time for them an unknown market, cross training and the running shoe market, which was completely dominated at that time by Nike and Adidas and, maybe some other Tiger, some shoes that people hadn't really heard of, because Reebok, at that time had only really been known for their casual shoes. And then they sold nursing shoes. Remember those white nursing shoes?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so they wanted to break into the athletic market and just go big. And they said, this is unheard of. And so they said they were putting like 85% of their entire year's marketing budget that was going to be committed to Dan and Dave. And we were just like, it's like, well, what does that mean for us? And it's like, well, you guys would be in commercials, and we'd make you guys into commercial household names. And they said, "Well, you guys interested?" And it's like, of course we are. Dave and I would jump at the opportunity to do that. But we even told them at the time, we haven't made the Olympic team yet. This was all going to be concluded. We're going to, the ad was going to be Dan versus Dave to be settled in Barcelona at the Olympics in 1992. And so, we told them politely as possible, it's like, look, we still have to qualify. Well, guys, you guys are number 1 and 2 in the United States. Nobody can touch you. We believe in you. You guys are going to get there. And so later that day, they had this huge, we're in a ballroom, and there's thousands of people in there, because Reebok used to have stores all over the country. And so you had all these sales reps come in, and they announced, this is what's coming in 1992. And at that year, it was Step Reebok. So it was a big step aerobics thing. And then it was Dan and Dave. And the place went crazy, and we went up on stage and we answered questions. And literally that was, I'm going to say September. In November, Dave and I, of 1991, Dave and I went to Los Angeles. Dave lived in Los Angeles, but I went to Los Angeles. And for 2 weeks, we filmed commercials. And we filmed about 8 or 10 commercials. And those commercials debuted during the 1992 Super Bowl. And so we got a chance to, just kind of, be part of the process, building those commercials. And then on the Super Bowl Sunday, I had a big party at my house. I'm sure Dave had a big party at his house, and those Dan and Dave commercials debuted. And
how fun was that?
Oh, it was crazy. It really changed my life from the standpoint of, everybody in my town where I was living, Moscow, Idaho, and where I grew up, Klamath Falls, Oregon, they certainly knew who I was, but now everybody knew where I lived, and everybody knew what car I drove. And every time, they knew me in the Los Angeles airport, and they knew me at the Spokane, in Spokane, and they knew, everywhere you're going now, we're going to big trade shows, and we're sitting courtside at the Laker games. And, and I tell people, this is just kind of as a joke to young kids, I said, we were so famous, we went on the Arsenio Hall show. And the kids look at me like, who's Arsenio Hall?
That's awesome. Arsenio, that's great.
Yep. So throughout the year, I would go back to Los Angeles for 3 or 4 days or a week, and we would shoot some more commercials. But people just got to know us immediately. I was coming off a fantastic world championship year. I competed in indoor track, and I did very well in indoor track, but I had sustained some overuse injuries and my shins and ankles and feet. And so my training wasn't going as well as I wanted it to coming into an Olympic year. But the process to make an Olympic team in the United States is, it doesn't matter what you're ranked. It doesn't matter what you did the year before. You have to go to the Olympic trials and you have to place in the top 3. All right. And that's the way it is in the sport of track and field in the United States. And it doesn't matter what event, 100 meters, long jump, decathlon, heptathlon. And so my job was to go to the Olympic trials in July and qualify for the Barcelona Olympics, which were in mid to late August. And so, Dave, same thing. He and I both had to finish in the top 3. And, leading into those Olympic trials, I had missed some competition because of the injuries. There were moments as well during the spring that, I was off shooting commercials. Dave and I were doing appearances. We were at the Super Show, or, and I'd think back and just go, golly, and Dave and I would just think, we should be at the track. It's Thursday afternoon. It's 2:00. I didn't think that it was really affecting my physical training, but I think it was affecting kind of my mental preparation leading into this Olympic trials. And so we finally get to the Olympic trials, and I'm pretty healthy. And as a decathlete, if you're 90% healthy, that's about as good as you can ask. If you're 92 or 95%, it's like you've really accomplished something.
Yeah.
But I got to those Olympic trials, and I was actually dating a girl who was a high jumper from Arizona. She made the Olympic team. She was top 3 in the high jump, made the Olympic team. She was headed to Barcelona, and our competition starts. But what I remember most about that day is Dave and I show up at it, and believe it or not, they had the Olympic trials in July in New Orleans. It's 100 degrees, 105 degrees with 98% humidity. I mean, it was just stifling.
Wow.
Yeah. But I got there early and got hydrated over days and leading in, and the competition started, and I had a really good first day. My legs weren't bothering me that much. And I had a huge lead at the end of day 1. But day 1's my better day. And then, you have to score in every event is the key. All right. And whether you score a lot or whether you score a little, it all adds up. And so on the 100 meters, the long jump, shot put, high jump, 400, I've got a first day lead. I go into the second day. I'm pretty exhausted though, because it's so hot. The heat just took everybody off their game. And so the second day rolls around. I open up the day with the 110-meter hurdles. Good event for me. Discus was pretty solid. I was on world record pace. Didn't throw discus quite as far as I wanted to, so I kind of dropped down below world record pace. But then we get to the 8th event, the pole vault. And the pole vault is a difficult event because it takes a long time. The high jump on the first day takes a long time.
That's why it's difficult?
Well, it's
that's the hard part?
Yeah. It's tough technically,
yeah,
but it lasts 4 hours. And
whoa.
Oh yeah, I mean, because you got 40 guys jumping on 2 different pits.
Oh man,
it just the bar comes off, you got to put it back on. It's just a long time in between jumps. And I remember warming up in the pole vault, and I just remember it's like a long time in between turns. I would take a turn and I wouldn't take another jump for 10 minutes. And it just, took a long time, and I wasn't feeling great in the warm-ups from a standpoint of, all right, I'm dialed in, I'm ready to go. Because in, my past decathlons, it's always been, when they call my name, I step up, I get it done. And that really was the limited experience I had in the decathlon. I had only done a handful of, decathlons up to that point, and certainly only a couple of big international meets. And so, I waited for my opening bar. You select your opening height. I tell the officials, look, I'm coming in at 4 meters 80, which is 15.7 and a half. And they start the bar starts at 13.6, 13.10, and it goes up 5 or 10 centimeter increments, just kind of based on the competition you're in. And so by the time they got to my opening height, it had been 45 minutes or an hour since I took my last warm-up jump. And I'm on the side, kind of doing my runs and staying warm and everything. But what happened is I went into the pole vault, and I just really underestimated the heat. I underestimated the amount of time that, I took my last warm-up jump, and just really kind of found myself out of sync. And so my first attempt was really poor. My steps weren't on, and my pull plant was late. And then the second attempt was much better, but I came down on the bar. And so all of a sudden I find myself in a really uncomfortable situation. And that's a third attempt at my opening bar. If I don't make a bar, I get 0 points for the event. And it pretty much 0 points for the event would take me out of contention to place in the top 3 at the Olympic trials.
Pressure is on.
Well, and the thing is, I'm not really even sure what pressure is up until that point. I felt pressure in high school. I felt a little bit of pressure in college. Nobody sits and explains to you, this is what it's going to feel like when you're on a third attempt here, and your sports life is swinging in the balance. And so, I was nervous. I was scared. I didn't have any tools really on how to deal with it. I had been doing some, relaxation and mental imagery and things like that, but not at a high level. And so I got up there for my third attempt, and I just kept telling myself, look, you're back in Pullman, Washington. It's Washington State. It's an afternoon. You're going to do it just like you do in practice. And, I came down the runway, and everything that could go bad did go bad.
Oh,
Bad takeoff, bad plant with my hands, straight up, straight down. It didn't really even give me a chance to make a bar. So all I can remember is kind of hitting the pit and realizing I've not made a bar. That was my third attempt. I'm out. And then it comes crashing down on you. I'm not only out of the competition, I'm not on the Olympic team. Dan and Dave's falling flat on its face. Everything just kind of hit me at once. And I was in shock. I mean, just like in a daze, like, help me, somebody please help me.
holy crap.
And you're in front of thousands of people. You do the best you can to just kind of pick up your gear and move off to the side. And,
Wow, man.
but you hear this collective gasp
Mm.
from the audience. It's like, oh, but that collective gasp means tragedy for me. But one of the athletes, I'm sure, was just like, oh, there's another spot on the Olympic team that's open here.
That
So,
I didn't expect. Right.
Yeah. So, but my coaches and we decided on that opening bar. I was getting a lot of instruction from my coaches, and, we just didn't get it done. And so, I make my way back to the practice track, and I got cameras on me, and guys with, the TV guys are all over me. And finally, I get a chance to just get away and sit down for a minute, but still I'm just in shock. It's just like, I'm so much in shock. It's like, what happened? I don't know. I honestly don't know. At the time, it's not till months later, even years later, that you would go back and just really analyze it and understand what happened. But I finally came to terms with it, went up into the press area, or went up into the skybox area, and my mom and dad were there. And, I hugged my mom and had a good cry, and then kind of got it all out. And my coaches came to me and said, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is the plan. And I think at that point I might have just said, hey, look, let's just, we're done. But there were 2 events still to go. And I could have just not done them, and just it's called a DNF, a did not finish. But my coaches came to me and said, look, this is what we're going to do. We're going to throw the javelin. We're going to run 1,500 meters. We're going to congratulate the guys that made the team, and we're going to answer every question anybody asks us. And without them, I wouldn't have done that. I probably just would have picked up my gear and got in my car and went back to the hotel and hid out for a couple of days. And, but, my team, my coaches, I had 2 coaches at the time, and they said, this is the plan. And I can remember kind of still being in a daze and in shock, but I was out there, I threw the javelin. But one thing that I remember about it is when I was out there throwing the javelin, the weight of the world was off me. It was gone. I remembered why I love the sport of track and field. I remember why I do it. You get caught up in winning championships and, wearing the USA uniform, that sometimes you forget. It's like, man, I really enjoy this job. I really like it. I love it, as a matter of fact. And so, I threw javelin. I think I got a personal best. And then I ran an easy 1,500 meters. There wasn't pressure on me. I didn't have to run a certain time. I just ran my own race and crossed the finish line. And then, boom, the press descended on me. And, I congratulated Dave Johnson and the other guys and said, good luck in Barcelona. And then, and then all of a sudden it was just, I answered questions. I answered questions in front of, I went to a press conference, and an hour long, just, it all kind of flies by. And, I tell people as a joke, is like, well, luckily I was in New Orleans, I got to drown my sorrows.
I had far to go. I had far to go to get my first hurricane.
Yeah. And so I did that for a couple of days. And I remember, I think it was the day I was leaving town. I had to be on, there was a Today Show set, at the track, and they always are, Today Show always welcomes, you made an Olympic team, come talk to us at the Today Show. But it was like a 5 a.m. interview. And I was like, one eye open from being out all night. And,
oh, wow.
But but what was interesting as well is, I come home from the Olympic trials, and when I landed in the airport in Moscow, Idaho, there's 500 people that came out to see me. And it was my team, it was my coaches and my attorney, and saying, hey, look, we got to go support this guy, and
that's so great.
And so, yeah. And so it was one of those things that was just, I think it get emotional thinking about it. It's just like, what would have happened if I didn't have that,
Oof.
So, in explaining this to my father was, it just was, well, why can't they still put you on the team? And how come you did this? And how come you did that? And, what ends up happening is you feel worse for the people around you than you do for yourself.
Wow.
It was like somebody died in my family, it's, oh my gosh, he didn't make an Olympic team. And so, I had 100 voicemails, or, I had 100 messages on my, old style answering machine. And,
Yeah.
but I just, I got home and took a few days off and, did stuff around my community. And it was amazing to me of how many people just came up to me and said, we still love you, and it's like, cool. So, when people ask me about overcoming that, how do you do it? It's like, well, I certainly didn't do it alone, and somebody smarter than me had a game plan. And that was my coaches. Get back out there, do your best, never quit. And I think without them, I might've just taken a DNF and, gotten back to my hotel. But I did get back to my hotel room finally, and NBC called me up and said, hey, we want to have you along in the broadcast in Barcelona. Would you want to come? And I was just like, yeah, you bet. So I took a trip to Barcelona for the Olympics, and that changed my life. Going to the Olympics, seeing the Olympics, I was truly inspired by some of the performances, but I also just got to experience the Olympics, and, had a credential, which got me everywhere, got to see my girlfriend high jump, but, I got to talk about this. I got to talk about the decathlon and analyze it, and, and live in the moment of, when I'm out there, I'm seeing those guys compete, but when I'm out there, I can put myself in their place.
Yeah.
And at the Olympic Games as well, is, I met a track meet director who does a decathlon in Talence, France, called the Decathlon meet. And it's one of the biggest decathlon invitationals. And he was just this French guy, says, Dan, you must come to Decathlon, And I said, I won't only come to Decathlon, but I'll come to Decathlon and I'll break the world record. And he was like, oh, mon Dieu. Eh. And so they promoted the shit out of it. And I find myself 2 weeks after the Olympics end, I'm on a plane, I'm on my way to France. And what was interesting is, as soon as I said, I'll come to France and I'll break the world record, all that pressure and expectation and everything that I had on my shoulders that I said went away, it came back on.
Welcome back. Good to see you. Amen.
Yeah. And it was like, oh, and so I show up in France, and it's cruddy weather, and, the track's not as impressive as I thought it would be. And it's just like, man, did I pointed to the left field fence, man, and I called the shot 3 weeks ago. It's like, now I got to come through. And you know what I did? I came through. It was one of those things where it's just like, I was just scared enough to scared enough to push myself, and I just wanted it really badly. And, and it might've been one of the most satisfying personal sports experiences that I ever had. And everybody's like, oh, it must've been awesome to win the gold medal and those world championships. And when I broke the world record though, in Talence, France, I remember getting out of the shower afterwards and just looking in the mirror and just going, oh, I got it. And it didn't, the pain of not making the Olympic team and winning gold there, but it was just a real personal accomplishment. Nobody else was around, and it was just like, golly. And that was one that, I just needed in my soul, deep down in my soul. And it was a great way to finish the season. And it was a great way to start the next season. And it just, I think if I don't just, if I don't go there, if I don't go to Talence, France, and I'm just living with this failure at the Olympic trials, who knows what my career would look like. But that is essentially the Dan and Dave version of it. Half the people that I meet remember me from Dan and Dave now, and half the people that I meet remember me from winning the gold medal in '96. And I think what happened because of that as well is, I changed the way that I was training. I changed my approach to the pole vault. I changed, I think up until that point, I was a good athlete. I was 26 years old at the time. I was a good athlete. I did exactly what my coaches told me to do. But after I no-hided in the pole vault, I proceeded to take ownership of everything that I did. I listened to my coaches. I did what they told me to do, but now I was doing more things on the side. I was watching more video. I was understanding the events, not because they told me to, not because that was what was on the coaching, that was on the schedule that week. It was now I have to be responsible for my successes or failures. And I think up until that point, I was putting a lot of the responsibility on the coaches. It's like, dude, I'm a race car, you change the oil, you tell me where to go and I'll do it. But after that, it was like, now I was the crew chief and the driver at the same time. And I had one of my coaches really appreciated that. He was just like, it's time to grow up. All right. Now it's on you. You don't work for us. We work for you. And it really changed our whole dynamic, but I just became a better athlete. I was prepared for everything, bad weather, good weather, track conditions, everything. And so when going into New Orleans, I had an A plan and a B plan. The next year, going into the next year, I had an A plan, a B plan, a C plan, a D plan.
Yeah.
So I was ready for anything anybody was going to throw at me, and I was ready to go. How far was I ready to? I won 2 more world titles. I broke 2 indoor world records. I won a Goodwill Games between 92 and 1996 was maybe the biggest stretch of success a decathlete had ever had. So it just pushed me to a whole nother level. And so when people talk to me about, it's just like, was it a positive or a negative? It was, it was a failure at the time, but man, that failure pushed me higher than any other decathlete had gone before.
Man. Whoo! I wrote down when you said in the very beginning, I learned more from this failure, and I put failure in quotes.
Yeah.
Okay, than I did from all of my successes put together. That's a huge comment, and you just told the story on that. It's, that's like a sliding doors thing. You could have gone one way, and we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Well, what's interesting as well is, people talk to me like it was a choice. Even your comment there, in my life at that time, there wasn't a choice. To me, I was a young athlete. I was just really getting started, so I don't make the 92 Olympic team. That's the first time that I was ranked that high. I didn't ever think to myself, if I don't make this Olympic team, I'm going to go, back to school, or I'm going to go another way. I didn't have a safety net. I didn't plan on anything else. I put everything into this. So my options were, I didn't want to do anything else. I wanted to be a professional athlete. I wanted to be the best in the world. And I just think, me personally, I wasn't going to stop until I got that.
That's spectacular. I like to slow moments down in these interviews for moments like this one. So what I'm hearing from you is that you said I didn't have a safety net. It wasn't a choice. That, I believe, is characteristic of someone who is infinitely committed to the mission. Choice. There's no choice. There in reality, there sure as hell is. There always is, but not in your head. We're doing this. So you own. I you used the word ownership earlier, which I love, which had my go home. You know, you took ownership. These are at the core of mental toughness. Ownership. Take complete ownership, right, of what's going on in your world, and ownership of your training, and ownership of everything. And of course, then you go on and you kill it, right, in Atlanta in '96. You win gold. You are the greatest athlete in the world. What's it like to be referred to as the greatest athlete in the world? In the world.
It's always debatable. That's what's interesting about the title.
I'm sure you've had some fun ones.
But a friend of mine who's a Canadian decathlete, his name's Michael Smith. For years, he held the Canadian record. And, you know, he said it really plainly, said, you know, defensive backs in the NFL or, you know, triathletes, you know, people might debate who the world's greatest athlete is. But in the decathlon, we run, we jump, we throw. And to do those three things better than anybody else in the world, can you call yourself the world's greatest athlete? And it's like, yeah, you can. So it's like, you know, and I'm honored to hold. I'm honored to hold the title because it was a title that Jim Thorpe created, you know, and I think about all the different people that held that title throughout history. And as, you know, Glenn Morris and Milt Campbell and Bill Toomey and Bob Mathias and Rayford Johnson and Bruce Jenner. And, you know, you got all these people. It's like, it was surreal, but it was also just such an honor to be able to hold that title. And I took it seriously. You know, I wanted to be good at a lot of different sports. I was a pretty decent golfer, and I played tennis, and, you know, it's just like, oh, I'm taking this pretty seriously. But, you know, my friends loved to pull me out of the sport of track and field and then just beat my butt in everything off the track.
You ping pong.
Yeah,
The greatest athlete in the world of ping pong. That's great. Can you tell us a little bit? I want to get to a couple other things, like your speaking topics, the psychological ones. But before we do, in '96, can you tell us a little bit about like your mental prep? Like, what were the things that you did to make sure that you were in the perfect frame of mind going into competition?
So what was interesting is, you know, my mental game stepped up after '92 as well. We had to figure out, you know, how do we get over this failure in '92? All right. Questions going to be asked. People are going to talk about it. You know, I think from a pole vault standpoint, you know, my coach and I, we took an opportunity to, you know, just become better pole vaulters. All right. And Coach Rick Sloan and I, he was a head track coach at Washington State for a lot of years. We said, you know what? We just got to become better pole vaulters. And we do that by studying the event. We do that by jumping more often. We do that by just, you know, you having a better understanding of the event. And so he and I did that from a physical standpoint. But I started working with a sports psychologist by the name of Dr. Jim Reardon out of Columbus, Ohio. And he was my sports psychologist. He was a team doctor for Team USA at these large track and field events. But I started working with him on the side. And we came up with a strategy where we were going to look at that jump over and over and over again and deal with that moment. And why did we do that? Well, first of all, we learned what we did bad about it, poorly, you know, what we did poorly from a technical standpoint, but also we wanted to numb ourselves to it. I wanted to numb myself to it so that when anybody ever asked a question, when anybody ever brought up the topic, it didn't affect me. And you think about a guy who's shooting free throws at the end of the game and he misses the game winner. And now all of a sudden they're in the championship and he's in that moment again, but he hasn't dealt with the failure from the last one. He's bound to make the mistake again. And so we were trying to figure, how do we not ever make that happen? So we just, my coach and I, we used to watch it on video, watch the failure on video, boom, and then go out to the track and jump.
That's so good.
And so we had to deal with it from that standpoint. But then as well, from the mental side of it, you know, one of the things that I did is I did extensive goal setting programs, a goal setting program for the week, goal setting program for the month, goal setting program for the season, goal setting program, long-term goal setting program. And when I failed, you know, one of the things that kept me going was I had this goal, win an Olympic gold medal, be called the world's greatest athlete. It was sustained me, but I wasn't sure how deep goal setting could go. But, one of the things we did was to be a champion in your mind, you gotta believe it yourself first. And so, I got the advice from somebody that said, look yourself in the mirror, call yourself the world's greatest athlete. And to do that, honestly, it's difficult at first. I had to sit there, look myself in the mirror and say, you're the world's greatest athlete. It doesn't make sense at first. And you can't even do it at first, and so.
Why do you think that is? You can't even do it at first. It's hard. Why? Why is that?
Because I think when you're by yourself, you can be super honest. Okay. And so many of us are programmed to believe, if I can't do it in practice, I haven't put the time in yet, I need more reps. And I think that as a young athlete, you're like, well, I haven't achieved that yet. I'm not to that status yet. And so that's the kind of thing that held me back. It's like, well, I haven't even won a world championship yet. I haven't even won a US title yet, So how can I call myself an Olympic champion? But over time, I practiced it and I gave it an honest effort where I would look at myself in the mirror every single night. You're the world's greatest athlete, or you're the world champion, or you're the world record holder. And it took months to get it going. But once I did, it really made a big difference. Now I went to bed a world champion. I woke up an Olympic gold medalist. I lifted weights as the world's greatest athlete, even though I hadn't achieved that stuff.
Beautiful.
And that was what really changed it for me, because
that's huge.
I did that leading up to my first world title. And my coach would ask me about once a month. He's like, are you the world champion? And then he'd ask me in February and I'd go, and then he'd ask me again in March. And by the time we got to June, I remember him asking me in July before an August world championship, are you the world champion? I looked at him straight and I said, yeah, I'm the world champion. Today, stand here, I'm the world champion. And I went to Tokyo, Japan, and I decimated him. And so that was the kind of training that I really relied on, is this positive self-image, this long-term goal setting.
Be him now.
Yes.
Brother, you're hitting on what I consider to be the biggest mistake that I have witnessed people making, not just athletes, humans, in creating excellence in their lives. And it's waiting for proof before you occupy best-in-class status. You're nailing that right now. Create the state, don't wait. That's my mantra for that. That's so spectacular. Don't be it now. Be him. Be her now. Yeah. Bring that person into the competition.
Slowly
don't wait for a medal.
Time.
Don't wait for the award. Don't wait for the accolades. Don't wait for the trophy. Don't wait for the outcomes. That's beautiful, man. That right there for everybody. Gift. Huge gift for everyone. Sync that, please, everyone. Be the amazing you now. Like, stop waiting for any proof. Woo! That's good, man. That's nice. That is nice. Were you finished with that, or are you still going?
Oh, I was going to say, you build the statue, and over time you step into it. And it's sometimes 1 foot at a time, and maybe your whole body's not inside yet, but just, you got to see yourself in there and up there. But I think I grew up as well with this, I was a dreamer, man. I just dreamt I'd be on Monday Night Football, and I just watched those games. Someday I'm going to play for the Dallas Cowboys, and that's just the kind of kid I was growing up. And I was really encouraged to do so. And I'm glad that I was able to do that, because when it came time to, actually do it as an adult, I think that creative mentality, gave me the rights to it. Just that I felt free. I certainly felt free to do it. But I will say, there were trying to get there, there were a lot of nights I ate macaroni and cheese, and, and when you talk about a choice, it's like, no, my choice was, I don't want to go back to poverty. I'm going this way. I'm forging ahead, not back. So no, you're absolutely right. But that was one of the biggest mental pieces of the game that I was able to overcome. And I think it was the one thing that set me apart from all my peers. Everybody wanted to win. Everybody wanted to be the world's greatest athlete. I'm not sure everybody in that room believed it as much as I did.
That's huge. Man, thanks for that. That's gold right there. So that's gold. You get nervous these days about anything in life? What makes you
Absolutely.
okay?
Yeah,
What do you get nervous about?
absolutely.
What do you get nervous about?
I get nervous every time I go on stage to speak.
Yeah.
I get nervous every time I have to speak up at a business meeting.
Yeah.
And I heard it from my sports psychologist. He's like, look, if you don't get nervous, you're a piece of wood. All right.
Yeah.
Kids ask me all the time, well, what do you do about the nerves before the 400 meters, or the 1500 meters, what do you do about nervous tension and, feeling sick to your stomach? I learned a harsh lesson. And my third world championship was 1995, Gothenburg, Sweden. Leading up to the competition, about 7 days out, I'd start to kind of realize it's coming, because in the decathlon, you push yourself physically, you push yourself mentally, you're just on for 48 hours. And it's a real challenge. And I can remember leading into my competition, I wasn't sleeping well. And so I get a hold of my sports psychologist, who's there as well. And the night before I compete, he's just like, come to my hotel, and we do 20 minutes of just, relaxation and some mental stuff. And then the next day I woke up and I was flat. 100 meters average, long jump, crappy, shot put, even worse. Took me to the fourth event of the day to turn on. What I realized is the nauseous feeling, the nervous tension, I have to feel that. I have to feel all of that stuff. The worse I feel, the better I'm probably going to perform.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that. That's funny.
And so that was one of those lessons. It's like, you never get used to getting ready for the 400 meters. I'd be sitting in high school, and I remember having a football game on a Friday night. I couldn't think about classes. I couldn't think about social studies. It's like, for some reason, I just, I was always just prepping for a competition later in the day or the next day. And my wife said I was miserable to be around.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
There's a theme that I'm detecting here through our conversation, which I'm sure is a theme that has always been a theme throughout your life, which is creating from all circumstances. So you're talking about utilizing, that's a good word for it, utilizing events, utilizing reality to propel you, converting adversity into fuel, right? Like utilizing the failure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. For the Barcelona qualifying. And then nervousness you're talking about right now is like not resisting it, loving it, using it. Yeah, let's go. Fuel, baby.
And I questioned myself. There were times when I would be so uncomfortable before the final event of the decathlon. It's like, this is my job. Do I want this to be my job? But 5 minutes later, you'd cross the finish line and you would say to yourself, I was built for this. Okay. I just, why did I worry so much? But that's just life. You build it up and it's way worse than you think it's going to be. And all of a sudden, halfway through the 1500 meters, you're like, I can handle this pain and discomfort and uncomfortable, and that was the thing. I got really good at being uncomfortable. And even as an adult now, it's like I can handle a lot more uncomfortableness than a lot of other people.
I got really good at being you're dropping some serious wisdom bombs.
I appreciate
get a new pen, man. My shit's running out over here. You had too many notes going. This is nice. So, all right. So you do all this. You do a lot of speaking. You mentioned that, and I was looking at your list of speaking topics, and there's several, but there were three in particular. I would just spend a couple minutes on each, like a couple minutes, because we could. I mean, obviously, we could unpack this for days. But so the three that popped for me are overcome. Well, you know what? We just spent about an hour on number one, which is overcoming adversity. So check that box. The other two are and maybe we talked, maybe you already did. You tell me. Think like a champion, and then expect success. Is there anything in Think Like a Champion that we haven't discussed yet?
No, and we could just reiterate it as well. My Think Like a Champion was understanding the long-term goal and waking up every day and performing as if you were already the champion.
Yeah, as if.
That to me is just having a champion mindset that I'm going to follow through, but also, I buying into my coach's system, being present each and every day. One of the things my coaches said that I did really well was, I could block out all the external. when I showed up to the track and I got out of my truck and I walked through the gate, I'd have collection agencies after me, and I'd just broken up with my girlfriend. But when I walked through the gates at the track, I put all that behind me. Everything else just faded away, and I was able just to run track, just do what I needed to do in the moment. And so that to me is thinking like a
Great
champion.
skill, compartmentalizing.
Yeah. And decathletes do it really well.
Expect success. I love that. When I saw that, I thought, oh, good. Yes, please tell me about that.
So preparation, in my opinion, it's going to help you with that nervous tension. It's going to help you with that anxiety you feel. And I always used to think, the more I can prepare, the less anxiety or anxious feeling or nervous tension I'll feel. And that applies in a lot of things, maybe not so much in sports, but it applies in, think about preparing for a test. If you're really prepared, you're going to walk in there and you're not going to be worried about it. You're not going to be nervous about it. But if you crammed all night and you turned in your assignments all in the last week, you're going to be nervous about it. But, expecting success to me was there's 8 guys in every one of my races. All right. 8 lanes in the hurdles, 8 lanes in the 100 meters, 8 lanes in the 400 meters. And I'd look down the line at the start of the 400 or look, up the row at the guys. And I would think to myself, I did more work than everybody else here. I lived it. I thought about it on days that, they were probably, I ran in the rain, I ran in the snow. And I would build myself up that nobody deserves to win this more than I do. I never thought in any competition that somebody else deserved it more than I did. And I had this huge deserve factor. It's just like, no, I was the one who dreamt about it, stared at their ceiling, went through every movement in the javelin in my head over and over at night. And so my deserve factor was off the chart. And so I expected success. And sometimes it's a little stressful. Sometimes it's not so fun, but I never went into a major competition where the gold medal wasn't the goal. So often nowadays you see kids who just want to make the team, make an Olympic team, make a world championship team. My first world championship team, I didn't expect to not only make the team, I expected to win the world championships. And I don't know where that comes from. And that's just my cocky, that's just me being a little over cocky a little bit, but it really served me well because I set myself apart. Michael Johnson and I talk about this. It's like, we didn't compete against the rest of the Americans. Our goal was to get to the top of the world. And so I constantly expected success, but my work ethic as well was probably the best in the world.
I don't call that cocky. Cocky sounds like there's something inappropriate about it. I call that goddamn powerful.
Yeah.
Right? Like our conditioning would have us play small. To have us think that there's something remotely inappropriate about choosing to be the best in the world, even before you have evidence of it. So I don't call it cocky. I call it badass.
So there's a great quote. There was a great miler from Algeria in the 90s, Nourdine Morsali, and they asked him, they said, how do you expect this race to go? And he said, when I run, my mind is filled with doubt. I'm never sure who will finish second and who will finish third.
That's awesome. That is brilliant. I love that. That's so great, man.
And I think for me to get a silver or bronze medal, I would have had to adjust my thinking. Okay. And honestly, even as an announcer, when I see somebody who has gold medal potential win the bronze, it's hard for me to say, oh, and she must be thrilled with the bronze medal. It's PC. We can't say, well, you didn't win the gold. She won a bronze medal at the Olympics or the World Championships, for crying out loud. That's a pretty great accomplishment. But for me, if I were to take home a silver or bronze, that's when my thought process would have had to change a little bit. I would have had to figure out a way to be happy with a silver or bronze medal. That's just that because my coaches and I, we just knew it's like, look, that's not why we came here.
Right.
We didn't go to that World Championship.
We were going for a different piece of hardware.
Second or third. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
That's beautiful. Speaking of announcers, do you know Adam Archuleta?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. Have you ever played golf with him?
No, I haven't. I'm trying to think.
Set that up. He's a good buddy, former
I
client.
used to see Adam at the gym.
He's also been a guest here on Tough Talks. Oh, really?
No, and I love his story and love to see what he's doing. I'll always watch a game when he's on it too. So, no, he's doing great. I love his humility. To me, he takes me back. He's like, he must be an Idaho guy. He's just so nice.
Yeah, he's one of my favorites. So tell me about this Win with Integrity program.
Okay. So the Win with Integrity program was a program within USA Track and Field, and it was we wanted to bring champions from the sport of track and field. So it traveled where USA Track and Field traveled. So we would have a big track meet in Texas. We'd have a big track meet at the Penn. We go to the Penn relays, and athletes who were competing, and me back in the day, I was hosting it after a while, but we would take 3 or 4 athletes competing on the Saturday at the Penn relays. And on Wednesday or Thursday, we would take them into a big high school, and we would do this Win with Integrity program, and athletes would talk about their success and how decision-making in their lives help them get to where they are, and where track and field actually took them. Well, track and field took me all over the world. Well, track and field took me all the way to a college scholarships. Track and field, but to make those decisions, I had to decide to be drug-free. I had to decide not to use performance enhancing drugs. And so that program was really big when I was kind of finishing my career. And as I made the transition past, then it was cool. Then I got to go to those places and introduce those athletes and ask the questions, and, see younger athletes inspiring those kids.
Nice. So take us up to the present now. What are you up to these days, sir?
Well, I'll tell you, it's all about goal setting, and talk about accomplishing a goal, not only for myself, but for a group of people who've been at it for a while. So since I've lived in Arizona for the last 20 years, I've been part of an organization called Legacy Sports USA. And our goal was to build a large scale sports park in the Phoenix area. And for years we were at it, trying to raise the money, trying to find the property, trying to put the two together at the right time. And it wasn't until 2019 that the project got funded.
Yeah.
And we managed to, Legacy Sports USA managed to build a 320 acre sports park in East Mesa. We're just east of the Mesa Gateway Airport, excuse me. And the sports park is enormous, 24 soccer fields, a dozen baseball fields. We've got 18 indoor basketball courts, 36 volleyball courts, 41 pickleball courts. There
are 22 futsal courts.
22 futsal courts. Yeah. This place is enormous, but it's a destination for some of the largest tournaments in the country. We cater to the club sports industry. And I oversee a 25,000 square foot performance center, which looks like a Division I weight room. We train all the club teams here on campus, but we also work with just individuals walking in off the street. If you want to get bigger, faster, stronger, come see us in the performance center. So it's called the sports park now got title sponsorship with Bell Bank. So it's called Bell Bank Park. And here in the performance center, it's called Legacy Performance inside the Coco 5 Performance Center. And Coco 5 is Devin Booker's hydration company. He sponsored a number of different areas around the park. So yeah, it's kind of cool to have that affiliation. Yeah. But I'm doing what I love. I get a chance to train and influence young athletes, but also, I just got back from the World Championships of Track and Field in Eugene, Oregon, where I was an announcer. So I, still announce college track and field, professional track and field, and get to still coach and be around sports all day.
So funny. I wish you and I had talked just a week earlier than we did about setting this up. And you're a guy, by the way, you didn't need much time, much notice. You make things happen fast. You don't let grass grow under your feet. But the reason is because my birth mom, who I was reunited with, was there in Oregon, went out. Okay. Yeah, she and her husband went there. I would have introduced you. So, and you're also doing, obviously, we talked about it. You're doing public speaking. So if a company wants to hire that, you had me riveted, brother. I mean, you are good. I mean, not only is your story unbelievable, but your storytelling is phenomenal.
I throw some commercials in there too. I show you some Dan and Dave commercials. I show you.
I bet.
I show you
Okay.
a failure in New Orleans and, talk through, but, and so many, I think because of that happening in 1992, I became kind of a poster child for overcoming failure. And I remember I'd get calls from, I'd be at a track meet and a mother would come up to me and say, "Oh my gosh, my daughter fell in the cross country championships. Would you talk to her?" And I was just kind of this guy that, was helping people, kind of deal with sports, sports failures. But I think because of that and learning more about, failure and overcoming adversity, especially certainly through my life, I messed everything up in college, got kicked out, lost my scholarship. That's another story.
Oh, I wish I knew that.
But because of that,
That'll be for round two.
I've kind of put myself in a position where, I'm in a position to help other people overcome tragedies in their lives, and a friend of mine, his mom passed away a few years ago. And I felt so fortunate that I was equipped to help the family through that tragedy. I was kind of the voice of reason, and I helped, I not only helped him, but some other members just, think about it a little bit differently. And, I think because when you go through that, you're in a position to provide some influence and some advice.
Good for you. So bellbankpark.com, and your site is your name, danobrien.com. If any companies want to hire you, they can go to your speaking page at danobrien.com. About 148 times today, I had the thought, I'm into mantras. I use tons of mantras. Like, well, you just mentioned a couple that create the state, don't wait. But the other one that I kept thinking of throughout our talk today is a little bit longer, and it goes like this. Every set of circumstances can be created from if viewed masterfully. And you certainly are a master at viewing circumstances, particularly the ones that we would consider adverse, with some serious ass mastery. Dude, thank you. Seriously, thank you, because now I get to take credit for having brought you as the gift to my tribe.
I appreciate it. Thank you. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And it's funny, we don't see each other that often, but when we do, it's like, wait a minute. I want to surround myself. And one of the biggest reasons I was successful is because I surrounded myself with people that shared the same vision and goals. But I was at a business conference just recently. It's like, you want to be successful, surround yourself with positive, successful people. And so, I see you and it's just like, man, I got to spend more time around that guy.
How's that? Well, maybe we'll set up a round of golf with Archie, you and Mr. Archuleta.
Absolutely.
All right, brother. Really appreciate you, man. Thanks so much.
Hey, thank you.
Anybody got a brick wall that I can borrow real quick? Because I feel like running through one. How good is that? All right. How good is he? That was nice. He had me in rapture. He's a good story. He's got good stories and he knows how to tell them. Man, there's at least two massive takeaways. One is, creating from all experience, right? Is creating, not just creating something, but creating truly, like true excellence, like magnificence from an epic fail. He said there's no choice. Well, we know that there is, but the state of mind that he was in, all in, I mean, of course there's no choice. There's one course of action here. And the other, which I think is maybe the biggest takeaway, is not waiting. I mean, what he's talking about, I got this on my desk, which is I'm speaking my way into being the greatest version of me every day. I speak my way into that every day. I'm creating myself with my language, and I'm not waiting for evidence, right? And that's the same thing. It's like I got to get this quote down because I reference it a lot, and I don't know it exactly, but it's from Muhammad Ali, where he's like, I was saying to the world, I'm the greatest, long before the world was recognizing me as the greatest. Right? Being it. Create the state, don't wait. Be that person. If there's nothing else you take away from this episode, take that. But just stop waiting. Stop waiting to be the most amazing version of you. Stop waiting for evidence or support or encouragement or justification or rationalization. Delete all that crap and be that person now. And it's not cocky. Okay? No, that's smart. That's us. It's not cocky. That's us not playing small. Man, that's some gold right there. Speaking about gold, that's our gold medal. All right. Thanks, as always, thanks for tuning in to Tough Talks. And until next time, create miracles. Oh, by the way, forgot to mention, Dan's got a book out, which I didn't mention in the interview. Dan O'Brien's Ultimate Workout. Check it out. And check, if you're local to Arizona, check out Bell Bank Park. I'm going to go over and visit him. And definitely check out his website. His website's cool. And if you're in a position to hire someone as an inspirational speaker, I think you, do I need to say anything? DanO'Brien.com. All right. Until next time, create miracles.